Ladies and gentlemen, post World Cup, you found two people who don't know anything about it, quite possibly don't care. John Browner, Jason Lawhead, the Mightier 1090 ESPN. I am playing sick, and Jason is got jet lag from doing 50 shows in 5 nights in Las Vegas, the motherland of lights and debauchery.
Oh, my
God. On the show today, we're going to finally get to USC making the top 4. The Lakers smoked the big lead last night. We'll find a way to get into that. And if you hire a coach without any experience, would you be shocked if he didn't call timeout for the last 2 minutes of the game? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll break down the Jeff Saturday. I don't even know if we want to call it clock management because he wasn't managing anything. He was just standing there. But first, I want to introduce my dog, Jason Lawhead. What up, Jason?
What up, man? I sad to hear you're not feeling too good. Is it a head? Is it a chest? Is it a what is it? What do you got?
It's a everything.
It's a everything. You're like an everything bagel of sick, huh?
Yeah. I don't know what's happening to me, man. I really don't know.
It's that time of year too, a little bit, where it's easy to get like kind of just pulled down, dragged down, sick. I mean, I'm like I said before the show, I'm just like jet lagged, tired, overperformed, not enough sleep. Yeah, in Vegas where every machine makes noise, even the ATM, ding, 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 ding. You know, like I'm over here. So yeah, I mean, I get it, but we'll get through this. We'll get through we'll get through it.
I want to start the show by, and I don't know if this is attacking women, but which is never the right thing to say. We should want to start something. So we all know the trials and tribulations of Deshaun Watson and what he's been accused of doing, and he's paid the women off. He's now been reinstated and now going to play his first game for the Cleveland Browns against the Houston Texans, his former team. Now, keep in mind, Deshaun Watson hasn't played in over a year, but that's not the point here. The point here is this thing. There's now a report that some of the accusers are going to attend the game. I got to tell you, your 15 minutes are up, ladies. Did the check clear? Because if it did, congrats. Like, as a survivor of sexual assault, allegedly, of course, I would think that they would have more productive ways to help women who are going through or will go through what they say that they went through. Showing up at your accuser's event does what? Like, why would you show up to the football game to do? You gonna boo him?
Yeah.
Like what are you trying to accomplish for women by going to the game? I don't know if this is something put on by the lawyers. I don't know if this is something that the women wanted to do, but this ain't a good look, man. It really not.
No, it's probably something. Obviously, an attorney. This is definitely an attorney's, MO type of a thing.
Busby, I think.
Yeah, Tony Busby, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't. Obviously, he's already had a relationship with the former owner for a long time who passed away, and so I'm sure that he has a lot of relationships in the inner workings of the Houston Texans. And when you're 101 or whatever their record is, and your former quarterback with all of those headlines are coming back to town, you have to do something. You have to make this somewhat entertaining. Your team isn't. You're not going anywhere. I mean, this is in certain respects, your Super Bowl, your biggest day of the year is, look at us. The game's in Houston. Watson's coming back. We're terrible, but there's a side story. And what I find interesting is, whether it's all true, not true. Well, if it's not true, then there's certain ramification. But whatever the percentage of the accusation, Busby says in a comment, which I find interesting, some of the women really want to attend the game to kind of make the statement, hey, we're still here. We matter. Our voice was heard, and this is not something that's over. Blah, blah, blah. Sexual harassment and assault happens every day in the United. Then take him, then wait it out and do it in court. Because if you want your voices heard, if you matter, if you think that this is something that you don't want to happen to other women, then grind it out. That's bad. That's a bad, yeah. But what I'm saying is stay the course. Take him to court. Wait till the courtroom. Sit there. Bring him. Face him there. Like you said, what are you gonna do? Boo him? Oh yeah, like he's gonna care. Like what? That's gonna have no effect on whatsoever of anything other than the outside noise, the outside static. So my problem with it all is not that whatever that the statement where it lies in the reason why. Well, that to me is all of those words should be flushed out in court. There's the bravery. Take him to court. Sit down in a court of law. Look at the judge and the jury and tell your story and force him to tell his. But guess what? You settled.
So one of the things about sexual assault in this country is women get to be anonymous. They don't have to put their face out.
Right. Which they've also declined comment. So he's the only guy making their statement. They've all declined comment. But anyway, go ahead. So that's my point.
Right. So, but no, that's a good point. Because if they're all declining the comment, what the hell are they going to the game for?
Yeah.
If you want the fastest way to be identified is to show up to this game as a woman who was sexually assaulted by Deshaun Watson. Because it's enough of y'all to have a whole section.
Well, they're probably going to put him in a suite, I would imagine. You know, the Houston Texans are going to act like they are so affected by this, and they're going to play this whole, violin game of, we care about you so much, and they're going to play it up because they got no other angle. And if so I would imagine that they'll be protected into a suite, some area. They're in Houston. It's a home, field. So everybody's against Watson. I mean, even if people knew that these women were lying, there'd still be Houston Texans fans on their side because they're just so, disenfranchised and they hate Watson so much. But yeah, I mean, you might, the way the Texans are, you might want to look into somebody's women and say, hey, can you dress? Instead of just being up there in the suite, can one of you play free safety and get him back that way? Because we stink.
Can you sack him?
Can you sack him? Hey, yeah, exactly. This time, really
What's
take
your
him
pass
down.
rush like?
Yeah, exactly. Let's go before we put you in a suite. Let's clock your 40 time real quick.
let's put some pads on you. What's that?
Yeah, why don't you run through these tires real quick? Let's see what you got there, and then maybe we'll let you come to the game.
Because we find ourselves in a situation where all these women had these complaints about him. All these women were heard. They had to unfortunately go through a situation at that level, and now you want to relive it by going to the game. To me,
right.
This just reeks of my 10 minutes of 5 minutes, 15 minutes of fame, whatever the number is at this point. But that use your situation. Because again, I'm not saying that the women were not assaulted. Use your situation to help women in the future. Use your situation to help young girls down the line, not to get into situations like you had found yourself in. But if you think that you showing up to this game somehow means that you're not invisible, like you are very visible. Like this is all people talked about with him for a year. Y'all are very visible. This idea that they're not visible or they're not heard flies in the face of everything that has happened to Deshaun Watson since this has happened, and with everything that's happening with the NFL and everything that's happened with these women.
Yeah, and like you said, if this really means a lot to you, yeah, take a measure of responsibility in the sense that, and I don't mean that as it was your fault if these allegations are true. What I mean is if you're going to settle in court, if you're going to take the check and then you're not going to comment or you're not going to reveal your identity, then take the measure of responsibility like you just said and go make some changes and go talk to some youth, go talk to some high school, go and let them know that these circumstances are out there. And there's a sliver of a measure of responsibility on you as a person to not put yourself in these situations or to try to exit them as soon as you see something going sideways. So, yes, instead of attending a game in an anonymity, ooh, I got that out. Anonymity. Go out there, be anonymous with private groups of youth or Boys and Girls Club or wherever you can go to help the next generation of girls that look like you, that are like you, that could be in these situations. And hopefully, maybe they're doing that. I don't think an attorney is going to push them in that direction. He's going to push them more into this direction so he can have an article and he can have all these types of things and keep his name in the press as all of this kind of dissolves. Because after Sunday, really, as long as Deshaun Watson, doesn't do anything that brings more accusers or whatever, after Sunday, there'll be a lot of news about how he performs, what the final score is, what happened during the game, if any, Texans guys took cheap shots on him or whatever. And that's all going to be kind of flushed out for a few days after Sunday. And then the world will move on. And as long as Deshaun Watson, is Deshaun Watson, it'll be forgotten. The story will at least be erased quickly enough. And so this is kind of, like you said, the last kind of, pitch at some 15 minutes for the attorney and all of his. And this is something I think the Houston Texans are inviting because, like I said, I mean, when you got one win, something's got to be on your side of the story because Watson's playing for the Browns now, right? So, anyway, decline to comment. Watson's going to decline to comment. There really isn't much anything there except like a small staring contest that nobody's going to pay attention to after like the first second of staring, and then they're just going to watch the football game.
I got to tell you, in addition to that, another person who their 15 minutes of fame are up in a sense of this was fun. It's just Saturday. Whew. The idea of you can be a head coach because you just got off the couch, that you can't unring the bell of what he did on Monday. If I'm in the locker room, I'm looking around going, okay, what are we doing? What are we? Matt Ryan is an experienced quarterback. Choked in the Super Bowl, but nevertheless got there. He's an experienced quarterback. The fact that Jeff Saturday, when asked why he didn't take a timeout, basically said the moment didn't present itself. Actually, it did many a times. Because I don't know, maybe 4th and 3 was a good time to take a timeout. Maybe. So I watched this game. I watched the fourth quarter of this game. I didn't see much of it. I only watched the fourth quarter. And as I was watching, I was saying to myself, these teams aren't good. These teams are really bad. And I dubbed it the Rooney Bowl.
Yeah.
As the Rooney Rule Bowl. Because this guy didn't deserve the job. And the guy on the other side is one of the few black coaches that are actually kicking ass in the NFL. So I thought it was great that Brian Flores and the Steelers were able to get that dub last night. Along with Mike Tomlin, of course, who's
Mike Tomlin, say what you want about the guy, right? I mean, he's got the Steelers at 4-7 when you look at a lot of records in the NFL from teams with a lot more talent than they have, especially experience at the quarterback. The Colts being one of them. The Colts being one of those teams with a Matt Ryan at the quarterback and some of the other talent they have in some skilled positions. When you look at teams like the Buccaneers at 5-6, when you look at some other teams like the Rams and the way other teams have gone south with a lot more talent, a lot more experience in places. I think the Steelers thought they'd get a lot more from Najee Harris this year. He's a gamer, he's a battler. I'm not bad, but his numbers aren't the kind of numbers that they thought. I think he was going to kind of push through and help whatever quarterback, whether it was going to be Trubisky or Pickett. They're in a tough division. That AFC North is still tough as nails, and with Watson coming back, the Browns are another team at 4-7 that's maybe better than that, but Pittsburgh isn't better than 4-7. I mean, when you look at them as a body,
all of 4-7.
I mean, they've done everything they've had to do to get to 4-7. So give Tomlin some credit when you look at his career numbers. And yeah, that was kind of a shining example of You know, where that Rooney Bowl, that's a great description, because you really saw a coach a team up to a win, and
Mm-hmm.
another coach kind of being out of his element and kind of maybe probably given a at least a chance to win that game. And you're at home, like you said, you've got the more experienced football team, the more experienced quarterback, and you take, what did he take? 2 timeouts to the locker room with him.
He took 2 times.
He,
He took.
you
I
never
think he took
take
all
timeout.
3.
I mean, the only time you don't call timeouts is in a first half big lead. I mean, I don't care even if you call timeouts. That's why you have them. Like, even if you're blowing a team out, usually in the second half, you're going to burn at least 2 of them somehow, somewhere, and in some type of play to organize yourself, or all 3. I mean,
So it was
you
2.
rarely,
He
you
took 2
rarely
with
see
him,
a coach, even when in a double digit win, walk in the locker room with 2 or 3 timeouts.
in his
Um,
pocket.
yeah, you don't take those home with you. You know, maybe in the first half, like I said, in a big lead, or if you got one left and you're just trying to run the clock out because you're happy being down 6 at the half and you might be getting the ball back. Whatever, then you don't burn one, but never in the second half. I mean, that's the whole point of those timeouts, is to have crucial discussions with either your defensive unit on a big third down or whatever it is, or your offensive unit on what you said, like converting a 4th or a 3rd and long in a situation, or trying to stop the clock, saving all 3 until last team who gets the ball wins. So
I always thought this was a terrible hire. It now looks like a terrible hire. He doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. He literally just what they hired him to do, apparently, is just be a rah-rah guy.
yeah,
Because this is what a doofus owner does. And this gets me back to my wholesale problem with a lot of the NFL owners. They're not smart. They just have good timing. Jeff Irsay is not a smart man. He's not football smart. Now, whatever it is that got him all his money, he might be great at that.
I think
He's not football smart.
it was the Ursay before him.
Which, again, it could be. It could be. But when I watch some of the decisions that they make, so he basically fired Frank Reich after making him play a quarterback who wasn't better than Matt Ryan, to then lose 2 games, fire him, and then hire your friend who then tells you we need to play Matt Ryan. Like, what? So the entire fiasco that has gone on there is, I hope they never win another game this year.
And you know what's going to be funny? Here's what's going to happen, because now it's gone sideways, right? They won, and then they lost 2 in a row, and then they'll probably, with the ironic thing about the whole thing is that Jeff Saturday is probably going to be the first one to regret this. He might be the only one to regret it. Ursay's going to stick out his chest, and he's going to play this. This was the right decision. I don't care.
It was unconventional, is what the team needed.
Yep. And by a couple of weeks before Christmas, Jeff Saturday is going to say to himself, I could be on TV, Christmas shopping with my family, going to that Christmas party we always go to. Instead, I'm spending 16, 17, 18-hour days in a, practice facility, coaching office, travel. And I don't like this. I don't know what I'm doing. This sucks.
I think guys who had the career that Jeff Saturday had, coaching always sounds like a good idea till you do it.
Right.
Till you do it.
Unless you can't wait to get to it. And if he couldn't have waited to get to it, he would have been doing it already. He would have been an assistant. He would have been on the staff. Some guys can't wait to do it, and God bless them. But they're already in it. They're not going to TV first and, kicking the dirt around to see, what they want to do in life. Like, that is a lifelong commitment. It is literally like becoming a priest or a surgeon. Like, that's your calling.
You're marrying the lifestyle.
Yeah,
you're 100% marrying that lifestyle. You're all of it. And from a person who, as Jeff Saturday, lived it, sat next to it, spent 12, 15 years doing it, you would think if he wanted to be a coach, that bug would have already been on him.
Absolutely.
So I think this is just because I don't think he's going to coach next year.
No.
I literally think he sat around and Jim Irsay brought this idea up, and he said, "Huh, can't hurt."
Irsay probably had one discussion with him, was just whatever happens, run it through the year, not to make me look like an idiot, not to make us look like idiots. And if you don't want this at the end of the season, and you know, at some point Saturday's probably going to have that talk with him if he hasn't already, and it just says, "Hey, look, man, I'll try to steer this thing as best I can. You make all the comments you need to make to the press to feel good about this. We'll do whatever we can, and then you got to go get somebody. If you want me to help you look for a coach, great, but I'm not. This is, I mean, come on,
guy.
Come on, guy."
So yeah, man, last night was a very interesting. By interesting, I mean terrible game.
Ugh.
So I don't know if many people watched that thing.
Oh my God, fuck! 3-7 beat 4-6-1 last night. Ugh. Monday Night Football.
Monday night for we've still got a ton more to go through. The Lakers blew a big lead to a team that they were supposed to be trading for all their parts.
I know.
Can USC hang on? We've got a couple of other things to juggle. Brown and Lawhead on the Mighty 1090 ESPN when we come back.
Good.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the show. John Browner, Jason Lawhead here on the Mighty 1090 ESPN, also known as Browner and Lawhead. If you missed anything on the first half of the show and you came back or you just got in your car, you can always head over to the iTunes podcast store or over to YouTube, the clips page until Thursday to find what you missed. Like, share, and subscribe that thing. John Browner here with comedian extraordinaire, Vegas representative. Can you get citizenship in Vegas at this point, Jason Lawhead?
Yeah, man. I spend a couple times a year there, 7 days. So I'm usually there for at least 14 days a year. That's a long time to be in Vegas if you don't live there.
14 days is a long time to be anywhere if you don't. I tell people all the time, because I'm not a big vacation guy. Everybody who says, "Oh man, we should go on vacation," or "You should go," I tell them I live where people go to vacation.
Right.
Like there are 4 bomb beaches here.
Right.
If you can't go to one of these beaches because another beach interests you, then I'm good. Because if you go into anywhere, if you live in San Diego, you go anywhere for the beach, you played yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's why when my wife and I decided when we were planning our honeymoon, you know, neither of us, you know, people were like, "Where are you guys going?" And we were like, "Italy." And they were like, "Oh, really? You're not going to go to like Aruba or Bali or something?" Like, I live at a beach. I live where people go. Right. No, I want to go see, Rome and Tuscany. And so I love the vacation, and we love to travel when it's like, but we like to travel when it's like we throw it all in. We're not go to Vegas for the weekend and blow money. We'd rather save that money and apply it to a road trip to like the Yellowstone and the Dakotas, or go to, like, we just went to Spain. So we are definitely not like Vegas or just go somewhere for the week. Like, we're going on a road trip in the South in April, and we're going to hit Nashville for a day, enjoy it, spend a night at the hotel, drive to Memphis, see other. But we're not like let's go to Nashville and tear it up for the weekend and blow a couple grand for 3 nights in Nashville or Vegas or Austin. No, we'll put that inside of a trip for a day where we get a lot more out of it or something. But I'll tell you one place I'd never go on vacation, even if you gave me Qatar. Qatar. I don't care if we beat Iran 1-0. I'm not going to Qatar.
There are some of these places that are being developed where it's mostly driven by oil money and Islamic regimes. Bro, you can't get me there for no reason.
No.
Don't care don't care about the amount of money, because you won't live to spend it.
Nope. I wouldn't go to Qatar if I was like special force. If I was Liam Neeson and I had a special set of skills, and they wanted me to extract someone from Qatar, I wouldn't even go. I'd be like, "Nah, sorry, it's Qatar.
I'm good. Find another guy."
I'm good. Find another guy.
So yeah, man, I'm not a big vacation guy, so it's always funny when I hear people start talking about vacations and start talking about beaches. And
I'm going to disagree with you. I love vacations.
I love it. I live in Southern California, and it cost me to live near the water.
That's true.
So I damn sure go get my money's worth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not going to fly somewhere where it'll cost me more money while I'm still paying to live here to go to the water over there where I got water over here. So that's my soapbox when it comes to vacationing near the beach. But we are looking at something that is, I can't remember a turnaround like the turnaround that we've seen happen at USC in less than a year. When USC hired this new coach, there was a lot of back and forth about, is he actually good?
Right.
Is this for real?
This is a guy that's benefited off of weak defenses in the Big 12. A lot of teams would say, look at of course, that was a big hit.
It was all offense driven.
Sure.
They can't stop anybody, blah, 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 blah. And I kept saying to myself, I think Lincoln Riley's the guy.
He is.
I think he is. And sometimes when you put a certain guy with a certain place, it just works. And I think this just works, man, because the way that he was able to bring Caleb Williams in, and Caleb Williams kind of righted the ship, so to speak. Because after that Utah game, everybody was like, oh, okay, see, it'll be a good season, but it's his first year. There's no way that they can defy these lofty expectations. And now you sit here with one game left to go against the team that beat you, sitting in a catbird seat as to, I'm 4. The people behind me can't jump me because they got 2 losses. And I'm about to beat the team that beat me. So therefore, I really feel like I'm on to something. If this team gets USC, if Lincoln Riley, and I think he will, gets USC back in the national title picture, like the Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lindell White days, whether they move to the Big Ten or not, Southern California, from a college perspective, will catch fire again.
Oh, no doubt. And they're going to be moving into the Big Ten humming. You know, I think they beat Utah in this game, and I think they hold that position. Now, the question is whether, I mean, if they beat Georgia, good God, you're talking about an upset turnaround of the century. Everybody's got Georgia they've already just punched that national title. It's just like we're waiting the month until it's over or whatever there's left until the national title game, right? That's what everybody's doing. I think Michigan jumped on a lot of people's radars a lot better than they thought they were because they didn't beat anybody in the non-conference, and the Big Ten wasn't as strong, especially on the other side where Wisconsin usually or Iowa carries the Big Ten West, and they just didn't have good seasons this year. So it's going to be Purdue, I mean, in the Big Ten title game with Michigan. But, that's not Michigan's fault at this point. They did what they had to do, and that was exclamation point, win over Ohio State, and really knocked Ohio State out of any chance to creep back in if USC were to lose. If TCU were to lose, I think Ohio State's loss at home was so monumental that it kind of turned the voters to say, look, if they lose a hard-fought game, if it comes down to the wire, maybe we've got Ohio State over here ready to creep back in, because if their only losses to this kind of a Michigan team, then it's a good one. But now it's USC controlling their fate. If Lincoln Riley can beat or even play Georgia really tough, if the end of that game is, wow, man, USC almost had that game, and then Georgia goes on to win the national title, they're going to be coming in, flexing hard, that program. And now they're going to be in the Big Ten West. If they decide to do that, they may go and join it up into one big conference again, like the Big 12, and just take the top 2 teams. But if they keep them separate to keep Michigan and Ohio State on one side, and they come into that West, now look at that picture. Now look at the West with a UCLA program rising to the top if Chip Kelly can maintain it. Lincoln Riley doing it. Now all of a sudden, no matter how good Ohio State or Michigan is, when they go into that game, they're not going to have a Wisconsin or an Iowa or a Minnesota waiting for them. They're going to probably have USC or maybe a UCLA team. So it makes everything huge at this point. They've got to win this game, though, because if they don't, then it's all for naught. That season of turnaround doesn't mean that they won't get better. It's just going to be disheartening to be not in the Final Four when it's right here in your hands. Saturday, they can win it.
I think that it is interesting that people think that Georgia's going to roll all over them. The Georgia quarterback is not very good.
And they've struggled the last two games.
Stetson Bennett, I think that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
The kid's not an NFL quarterback. He knows he's not an NFL quarterback. So that's why he's riding this thing out as long as he possibly can. If you put Caleb Williams putting pressure on that Georgia offense to score, if USC can put up 28 to 30 points, I think they got a chance to beat them. Because yes, Georgia can score. But can they score when the pressure is on them? And I don't know if Stetson, whatever his name is, I don't know if he can do it, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're going to have to force him to put up the big numbers, right? When you look at the last couple of games, they struggled. They beat Kentucky 16-6. They did not have a good offensive performance. Bennett only threw for 116 yards. Georgia Tech, the final score looks like it was easy, but it was a tougher game than that. Georgia Tech played them really good for a half and into the third quarter. The final ended up being 37-14 because Georgia Tech was taking their gambles and then, having to get behind and play a little bit of football that they didn't want to have to play. But Georgia Tech was, 5-6 or 4-6 going into that game. So
not good.
No, so they've struggled the last 2 weeks. They've got, LSU, who is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde on Saturday for the SEC title game. So as bad as I say LSU has looked against a few opponents, they've looked great against a few other ones. So they've still got their work cut out for them, at least to, go in. They've got to beat LSU, I would say, pretty soundly, at least as much as they beat Tennessee by about 3 or 4 weeks ago, to feel good about where they're at going in. God forbid they lose to Tennessee, or I'm sorry, they lose to LSU, and then they're still going to be. Then they're going to slip in the standings. Then you're going to have Michigan at number 1, and probably TCU. TCU 2, or depending on how the style points USC wins, they could launch up to number 2 if Georgia were to lose this game. Georgia will still stay in the top 4 with a loss to LSU, but it won't be the number 1 seed. So a lot of interesting stuff.
It's a lot of back and forth, but I don't know if Georgia drops to LSU if they stay in the top 4.
Yeah, they do. I believe they do. I think LSU has enough good wins. They won that side of the conference. The voters will say LSU beat Alabama to take that side of the conference. They were Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde all year. They beat some good teams, even though they lost some games they probably shouldn't have. They're not, but Georgia will slip to 4 before they put in a 2-loss Tennessee, a 2-loss Alabama. The only way I would see Georgia falling out is if LSU just rang their bell so hard that people went, wait a minute, maybe Ohio State is better. Maybe whoever is better, in that 1-loss group. But I just think getting to the conference title game unscathed, number 1 all year, is going to survive them if they lose. At least they'll get them to 4 in the standings, but they might have to play Michigan at 4 instead of USC who would be the 4 if they were the 1. So that's the biggest change, I think, what would happen.
I'm just happy to have USC back in the picture, man, because I started watching college football because of Reggie Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, I started following USC football because of Reggie Bush. And so it's good to see them back on top. It's good to see them really being able to just get back to where I kind of felt like I remembered seeing them. So,
and just getting back to Lincoln Riley before we close on that topic. Yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy that's for real. He does that to that program. I mean, he does like a Pete Carroll 2.0 turnaround to that program. And then you go look at Oklahoma a year later after he leaves. They're 6-6. They're 3 games below 500 in that conference. I mean, they look like a team. They look like they're 5 years into a problem, right? That's how quickly it turned around. They look like that they look like Texas did for a long time already in 1 year. They look like they've had a 5-year just where are we at type of scenario. So that just shows you how good of a coach this guy is. And he's going to make it tougher on other Big Ten coaches to recruit because LA is going to be in the Big Ten. He's a flashy name, so he's going to change the infrastructure of the Big Ten quickly, if he hasn't already, in the sense of how are we going to recruit now before these guys join?
So last night, the Lakers were up by 17 points, okay?
At home.
to the Indiana Pacers. And you may know, as a Southern California sports fan, a Laker fan, or an NBA fan, you may know a lot about the Pacers roster, mostly because the Lakers are supposed to trade for most of those dudes.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen. And last night, I guess when you get a big lead against a team like the Pacers, you kind of go, okay, this was over. We're good. Let's keep it moving. Not so fast. So the Pacers storm back and basically win the game on a last second shot with 8 seconds left. What did you think was the biggest issue here with the Lakers dropping this game?
Well, I've said this, and when Davis is healthy, when James is healthy, when they're all healthy, they just can't find a closing lineup, and they haven't since Westbrook has come around. I'm not saying it's Westbrook's fault. What I'm saying is the way they constructed this roster from the time they won it in 2020, they constructed it not to have a closing lineup. It doesn't matter who they start and how good that looks. I've said this. Oh, sometimes they'll put Reeves in a starting line. Now, last night, what was their starting lineup last night? Brown, Schrader, Lonnie Walker Jr., right? Along with the big two. Westbrook comes off the bench, has a big game, 24. But who's their closing lineup? What's their best closing lineup? Because you have to be able to defend and have good possessions down the stretch. I don't care how big your lead is, 17 points, 19 points in the NBA. That is erased quickly with the three-point shot and the ability to get some stops if the other team has a good closing lineup. So you have to have a balance. You have to have a balance of really good defenders that can play team defense, okay? Yeah. There's a lot of really good defenders in the NBA. That's how they got there. They're athletic. They're strong. They have the ability to play above the rim. But do they play good team defense? Is there a concept when we're down the stretch here, guys, at the 10-minute mark? Here's our rotations. Here's who played this many minutes. Here's who's going to close. And I just think the biggest issue from Vogel in the last 2 years to Darvin Ham this year is who are the 5 guys that are going to stop teams and get good offensive possessions down the stretch. Because you can shoot 40% from 3 for the game, but if you only shoot 20% in the fourth quarter and it was all smoke and mirrors through, 50% shooting or 45% shooting in the first 3 quarters, and you're not a very good 3-point shooting team, you just happen to have a good night for a while, that's going to get exposed. And so defensively, as a team concept, they get exposed because they don't get the types of stops that are needed. And offensively, they waste possessions. And
if you're the Lakers, I'm going to read some of this off to you. If you're the Lakers, you get 25 from AD, 25 and 13 from AD, 21 and 7 from Bron, and 24, 6, 4 from Russell Westbrook. You're supposed to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Because the others on the Lakers aren't going to really give you much. And everybody's accepted that. So you've got Austin Reeves giving you 13. And other than that, everybody else is single digits. But if your big guys show up and then Russ shows up off the bench, you got to win that game.
I mean, so they went on the road, right? They won 2 against San Antonio, who stinks. San Antonio is giving
terrible.
They're giving up over 120 points a game. I don't think that the last time somebody gave up 120 points or more a game in a regular season, it's been like the pre-defensive Knicks era. I think it's been like the 80s, maybe the old Nuggets of the 80s that used to score a bundle of points. But I mean, we're talking about a team. So then last night again. What was it last week when they lost to the Suns? They went to the line 35 times. The Suns went to the line 5 times. They lost by 10. Last night, they went to the line 31 times. The Pacers went to the line 16 times. And they lose. So that just shows you they can't get stops, and they're wasting possessions when teams aren't putting them to the line. And that just shows you, I mean, they out-rebounded the Pacers. Their largest lead was 17. The Pacers' only largest lead was 5. So there's a lot of problems with this team when it comes to closing games. That hasn't changed. So don't let the 2 wins against a 3 or 4 or 5 win team that's giving up $120 a game fool you. The Lakers have a long way to go with even when everybody's healthy and on board.
I think the Lakers are 7-12. Is that what it is?
They're 7-12. They've got 2 road wins, and it's only against those back-to-back garbage San Antonio on Friday and Saturday night. That's it. 2 road wins, and they blow this one at home. You can't lose these games at home. I don't care. I don't care if you're 12-7. You lose a game like that to the Pacers at home. Yeah, the Pacers are playing good ball. They've got an interesting roster. They even, you thought the Pacers, they were going to kind of be that team that would be looking to trade because they got rid of Sabonis in the offseason, who was a big name for them. And when you look at that lineup, they kind of like, Halliburton at the point had a great game last night.
Ben Mathurin has been unbelievable. I don't know where this kid came from. I mean, he came from Arizona, but nobody saw him scoring like this.
No. And they get a bunch of bench production. They get solid. I mean, look at that balance in that starting lineup: 24, 15, 16, 15, and then 9. So they got 4 guys in double figures and another guy a point away from double figures. You got one guy, Turner has 13 rebounds. Halliburton has 14 assists. And I mean, hey, the Pacers in that Eastern Conference are right in the middle thick of it.
It's the real deal, baby. It's the real deal. So
you can't lose that.
Lakers still should have won that game.
You can't lose that game. And now they go on. Now it's no fun right now. Now they've got Portland. They're at Milwaukee, at Washington, who's not playing too bad, at Cleveland, who's playing good, at Toronto with Siakam back, who plays great defense. They held Cleveland to 88 last night, at Philly. And then finally they get a break at Detroit to end that big road test coming up. But if they can't.
How many games is that? 6 or 5?
So they've got Portland at home Wednesday, and then they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight on the road in the East. The only team that gives them a breather is Detroit, who beat them, I think. Or no, they beat Detroit. That's one of their wins at home. So they've got Detroit, who's the only other team giving up almost as many points as San Antonio. And but between that, it's Milwaukee, Washington, Cleveland, Toronto, Philly. And then they come home after Detroit. They come home to Boston, Denver, right back to, and so it is not that December schedule isn't fun. They've got Phoenix at Phoenix again on that schedule, Sacramento at Sacramento, who's playing good on that schedule, at Dallas on Christmas, at Miami, at Atlanta before the end of the year.
You got us again tomorrow. Brown and Lawhead, Miter 1090 ESPN as usual, y'all. Peace.